Hey everybody, it's Dave with No Chaser, and today's topic is about sleep. Now I know this topic can sound like a real snoozer, pun intended. However, sleep is super important, like especially in early recovery, or just your life. And you may think, well, yeah, I know it's important. So you make sure you get enough sleep. There. What more can you say about it? Moving on. However, sleep is one of those things where a lot of people pay lip service to it in the same way people do with like nutrition and eating well. Yet, it's strangely difficult for a lot of people to do. And especially if you're in early recovery, you may have other challenges that the average person doesn't have. For instance, you may be used to a chemical putting you to bed, tucking you in your stupor, And so once you're off of it, you start going to sleep and you lay down, you close your eyes, and you wait. And you're not tired because you're like, oh yeah, I used to have a guy for that. Jack Daniels used to do that, or opiates, or whatever, Xanax. Or on the flip side, maybe uppers was more your speed, but so you're used to staying up a lot, and now when you get clean, your sleep is all over the place. You're sleeping too much, and then you're sleeping not at all, and your brain is just like, whoa, where's the thing? Where's the thing we used to do for whatever reason? Whether it was to, and that's the other part. It's not just about it's not about just not getting enough sleep. It's about sleeping too much. It's about not being able to sleep at normal times, not being able to fit it into your whatever your schedule is, and there's a lot of one of the reasons that sleep is it can be very hard to come by in a good amount of sleep, a set schedule of sleep that will actually refresh your brain, is that sometimes it requires like real sacrifices in a very like strange way. You're going about your life and you're like, there's just stuff that I have to do. Like I have to get up and go to work. I have to take care of the kids, or I have to attend to these things. And so, yeah, that's the deal. I can't do anything about it. However, it will catch up to you. And it does in this way where it's not just this big thing where you're immediately thrown into like a hurricane of cravings or despair or anything like that. It just works little by little. It just kind of chips at you. You wake up and you're tired and your brain's a little foggy, or you're irritable, or you're sleeping too much. It's too much sleeping is like a totally depressive thing that I know I've done a lot. You start taking naps, which go way too long, and you feel like crap. And you're like, oh God, I've just been a layabout all day. Well, I wasted this day, and you're kind of just always getting up, like flustered, like, oh crap, I gotta go. And a lot of times it will, to get a good schedule, you have to be on time, and if you don't get enough sleep that one night, you still have to abide by your same schedule, and you just try to drill it into you that I'm going to do this. And again, I get thrown off of it a lot because, like, within recovery, I'm trying to incorporate stuff into my life. So I'm going to these meetings, or I'm doing these activities, or, for instance, I want to start working out. And here's one of the biggest mistakes I would make is that, like, all right, I want to start working out, so I will work out in the morning. I will wake up earlier. And then I would not go to bed earlier. Because that's what I should do, right? It's not like I was just waking up every morning and just hanging in my bed awake. I was sleeping, and I was sleeping for a reason. However, I would just be like, we got to go to bed at the same time, right? Because I still got the stuff to do. And the reality of it is that, if I'm going to do something to where I'm going to wake up earlier, if I'm not going to go to bed earlier because I truly can't, then I can't do that thing in the morning. And it's vice versa. If there's something I want to do that like requires me to stay up later into the night, if I can't afford to sleep in later, by an hour or what have you, because like I got to go to work, then it means I can't do that thing at night that I want to do. There's things you need to do, obviously, if it requires with your kids, or requires certain responsibilities that you have to do, obviously that. But there's a lot of things you want to do. And again, that's part of the sacrifices that you kind of have to make. And like I said, sleep is so kind of insidious in the way that it can put you into this spiral. Because, here's another thing I'd fall for all the time is that I would think, sobriety is so important. It's very important because if I relapse, it's going to be destructive and awful. And who knows if I'll survive it. So it's super duper important. And then I would make this connection kind of subconsciously where I'd be like, okay, yeah. And so it means something equally important is what's going to throw me off. So I have to be on the lookout for that. But it could very much be little things. And again, it's not like if you just, you're super tired one day and you're like, that's it, I'm going to relapse. Well, maybe actually if you're like in the first week or something, like you're kind of that fragile. But you don't think of it as like, I threw my life away because I was dealing with the sleepy tiredness. But in a sense, yes. I mean, that has very much happened to me when I had a good stint of recovery going. And when I retraced it, when I look back at it, honestly, of what kind of occurred, it was a problem with my sleep. But it wasn't just about being tired. It was that this thing was starting to snowball to where I'd be irritable. And again, your mind is kind of like weakened in this way. So that was going on day after day. And it was because there was something I was doing later at night. It was these new activities that I was doing, and I was not sleeping in later because I couldn't. And I wasn't not doing the thing I was doing at night. And so over time, that my mind was kind of getting weakened in this very subtle way at times. And then a craving and obsession came on, and I wasn't strong enough to like fight it off. And I was just like, what happened? I was still doing all the things I was supposed to be doing, but my sleep was terrible. And you just don't think about it like that, right? Like, why'd you throw your life away? I was just like, I was tired. And again, sleep can go that either or way too. You don't get enough or you get too much. Like I said, you can, too much sleep is a very sort of depressive behavior. And I've done that quite a bit where you're taking naps, but they're like going way longer than they're supposed to. And then the cycle begins where you're sleeping too much and then you feel like crap and you're like, I wasted the whole day. And then, you have that low self-worth, and again, you're still kind of foggy. Like, it sucks so much because you're like, I slept too much, and I'm just as tired if I didn't sleep enough. And kind of like I said, in a very short amount of time, too, can send you into this tailspin. And again, there's other ways that it affects your life where you start getting irritable. You start getting in fights, and your relationships start having problems, or you start retreating from people, you start repelling people because you're just in like a bad mood, or again, you're just kind of like tired. And when you're tired, it's easier just to go, I'm going to skip that. I'm going to skip that, meeting. I'm going to skip hanging out and talking with that person. I'm going to skip whatever healthy activity, whatever hobby I enjoy doing because I'm too tired, man. And where, it becomes like really problematic is when it just keeps happening. You start to think, okay, well, that's just my schedule. And the way that you remedy it is like, I'll catch up on sleep. There. So I'll catch up on sleep this weekend. And it's just sort of this, barely even a Band-Aid over what the real problem is that it's not just catching up on sleep. It is about like a day in, day out sort of schedule that you will need, at the very least, that you need in early recovery. I mean, you should have it for your life. But like I said, it's one of those things that gets like so much lip service. And the way I think about sleep is, it was like when I was talking to my psychiatrist about antidepressants, and he was like, the reality of these things, whatever this stuff is over here. No, the reality of antidepressants is that it's not going to make you 100% better. It's not going to make you 50% better. Maybe 20%, probably like 10. And I was like, what? 20 or 10? Why am I even doing this? Dealing with side effects or whatever? What? That sounds stupid. And he was like, the reality is that small amount that helps you, it allows you, it doesn't just make you better, it allows you to do other things to better yourself. It allows you to be able to get up and, get out of the depression just enough to start doing things that will pull you out of it more, and then be engaged in your life more and more and more. And it all started with that opening, and then all of a sudden you do feel like 100% better. And it all started with that. So in this weird way, it wasn't because of the antidepressants, but it was because of them, because of what it allowed you to do. Sleep, like poor sleep, is like the inverse of that, where it's not this huge thing. However, it opens this window where your life gets a little bit more difficult. Like I said, you're talking about either irritability or depression from it, or just, again, the mental fogginess that makes you more vulnerable to giving in to a craving, or, triggers, or the obsession, the compulsion, all that type of stuff. And it's maybe not just quote unquote just the sleep thing, but it's all the stuff that it eventually leads to. And I mean, like I said, it's one of those things where it's just like, dude, you gotta sleep enough. And it's like, I know, but it's, like I said, it is so easy just to kind of go like, I know, and I'll do it. It's kind of like me with savings, like having a savings. Like, I'll do the savings thing. I'll just, money will come by and I'll just do it. I'll just throw in a couple bucks in the old piggy bank and I'll just start doing that. And then I never do it because I'm like, well, I need the money. Stuff came up. Like, I need it, or I spent it, or I can't do it. It's the same thing with me with sleep, where I'm just like, well, I got to get up for work. I can't not go to work, or I gotta do this thing. And there are needs, obviously. There are things that you have to do, especially regarding work or children or whatever, like, responsibilities that you have to do. When it starts cutting into the wants, am I watching too much TV, or the Netflixes or the Hulus or the Apple Plus or the Paramount Plus, or God, all the other crap they have? Am I, and this was a big one for me when I had that good stint of sobriety that went awry, is that I was talking with someone. I was talking with someone romantically, and I was staying up later because I didn't want to go to bed. I didn't want to be the loser that's just like, I gotta go to bed. But seriously, that became a problem. And I could not make that sacrifice. Like, that is the one thing I would say to take away from this, is to respect sleep, in this sense that there are sacrifices that you do have to make to get on a good sleep schedule. And again, that can be incredibly difficult in early sobriety because you're used to it. You're used to just getting knocked out, or you're used to being able, if you were tired in the morning, you do a little of this, and then you're up and ready to go. And you don't have that anymore. You got to do it all natural. You got to raw dog this thing, as the kids say. Yuck. All right. Anyways, hope you got something from that. If you like my videos, you may like the podcast that I co-host called Shoeless in South Dakota. I'll have a link for that down below. Check that out. I do have a book. If you want to find out a way to get it free, or you want to order it or whatnot, there's a link for that too. And I do have the confidential email, where if you have an idea for a topic, or you want to ask a question, I'm not some wizard or whatever, but you just want to talk or whatnot, I got that there too. Other than that, be well.